This video isn't actually about what I'm going to start with, but I think I need to give it some context. The Welsh Government is currently planning to stand in the way of the duty of parents to give their children a suitable education by insisting on similar monitoring and other proposals to the Bad Man report which we had in England a couple of years ago. Now you might say, why should somebody in England be concerned about that? Well, the answer is that the children in Wales and the children everywhere else have a right to education, and parents have a duty to provide that right, and the government shouldn't be standing in their way. The fact that they happen to be in a different country is not relevant in the same way as the human rights of people in Haiti are important to me and I should be concerned about them. However, that's not what this is about. This is actually about the reaction of children who have been home educated. My children chose not to go to school for the entire period of their childhood. They had the real and open and fairly presented choice to go to school or not to go to school, and they constantly chose not to go to school. Now, I've noticed something with some ex-home educated, and I don't like those words, children, when they become adults, that they often wish they had been to school. Now, I want to give you two examples of that happening. One of them is of a woman who was a playwright and had plays put on in the West End in her late teens. She had been home educated, but she had opted to go to school after a while. When she got to school, she was very disappointed that the teachers didn't seem involved in her education and that the bell would indicate the end of their concern for the subject they were teaching and so forth. And also, she at a very early age was able to write plays and have them put on in the West End. I would regard that as success, and that success arose from the fact that she didn't go to school for such a long time. Another example is of a woman who is now a comedian who managed to get a column in a national newspaper in her mid-teens while she was home educated. She also feels that her home education was a waste of time. Now, I don't see that that level of success is in any way a recommendation for school education, because those children who later become adults were not educated at school, and as a result they became very successful. I currently feel that my children are not very keen on the fact that they were home educated. I think there's a couple of things going on there. One is, I think that they're reacting against their parents, which is a natural thing for children to do when they break away, and against their childhood, so they wish that they'd been to school. Although it was their choice not to go to school, and at any time they would have chosen to do so, they would have gone to school. As a result, they don't want to do the hands-off home education in Wales activity, which involves sending hands, outlines of hands, to the Welsh Government. The situation, as I understand it, is that people, when they regret not going to school, they are nevertheless successful, more successful than they would have been if they had gone to school, and I think the regret is based on the desire to do something different, to become different from your parents, and also to become part of society, which of course they were already. They also don't have a realistic experience of school because they chose not to go all the way through their childhood. So I think they may romanticise school in a way that those of us who have gone to school won't do, and also it's a case of the grass is always greener on the other side. And I think that's what's going on. Now obviously I want to justify my position, but I will also say it wasn't my position, it was their position. My wife and I offered them, or made them aware of the fact that the option to go to school or not to go to school was real. Once they got to college, they started early, they achieved better than average. A lot of the people who are at college were very turned off education by the time they got there, and they don't have an interest in learning for learning's sake. They're doing it for various other reasons, which is understandable given where they come from. But the gradual decline in interest that you get with organised education with our children is beginning very late on in their education. So they are more enthusiastic, more engaged and more involved in the formal education that they're doing at college than I believe they would have been if they'd gone to school. The trouble is that here we're talking about a situation which is completely hypothetical, both for us and for the children, so we don't know what would have happened otherwise. But I think that the mere fact that children as adults say that they wish they hadn't been home educated is because they fail to appreciate what the alternative is like, and because they are trying to be their own people, which is fine, but it does basically mean in our case that they're not going to be sending any hands to the Welsh Government for the time being. Maybe they would in a few years' time when they've reconsidered it, but that's where they are at the moment, and that's their life stage, and we've got to respect that, because the fact has always been that we want to present them with the choice of having control over their own education, and that's what they were given.